Hello everybody, it's Joshua from Haywood Studios, and today I'm here to review Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the movie. Now I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, it's a little late for that, isn't it? That came out months ago. But let me just say that on this channel there are plenty of movie reviews where I have reviewed them way past their release date. It's kind of a pattern too, because usually I watch a movie like well after it has come out. Like all my DC movies, they've come out later, well past the release date. Especially with my first Sonic the Hedgehog movie review too, that one came out way past months after it was actually released in theaters. And the reason that is because I usually watch movies after they come out of the theater. So when I see a movie for the first time, it's usually after it has been in theaters and it is now on DVD. I'm that kind of person who likes to watch stuff on DVD. And Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is no exception. I did not see this in the theater. I bought this on DVD from Target. So that's the little basic background story for those of you who are wondering. So when this movie first came out in April of 2022, which is this year, I just saw a bunch of positive reviews for it on sites like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic. And they're usually higher than the first Sonic movie, so I was just like, hey, if everyone says this movie's good, I'm okay with that. Usually when there's a consensus around a movie that says this movie's great, it's a masterpiece, usually I'm just like, okay, it's a masterpiece. It's probably good. There's something of value in said movie. Kind of like The Dark Knight. When I first saw The Dark Knight, I just went in expecting to be a good movie. And yeah, it was a good movie. It was very thought-provoking. With Sonic the Hedgehog 2, though, I expected it to be good. And it was. I liked this movie better than the first one. Let me get this out of the way. But I also have a lot of problems with it, and I want to get to that later at the end of the video. In Sonic 2, it picks up right after Sonic the Hedgehog 1, where Sonic meets a new friend, Tails, who is usually his companion in the video games. And together they go off on an adventure to find the Master Emerald, and to save it from the evil clutches of Dr. Eggman, who has returned to Earth alongside a new friend of his named Knuckles the Echidna. Let's start with the good stuff, because really there is a lot of it. First of all, I really enjoy the characters of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Watching them on screen was delightful. They were really cute, they were really just fun to see. The chemistry between Sonic and Tails isn't really there. There's not really any character development in this movie, but it was still fun to see it. I'm looking at this movie from the perspective of a Sonic fan, and as a Sonic fan, what I saw was pretty good. I really liked what I was seeing with Sonic and Tails as they were going through their little adventure. I mean, they try to have some chemistry. You can tell there's a bit of characterization with Tails especially. I'll get to that in a moment. It's really just kind of more of a passable, fun buddy movie. And you know what? It was still fun, and I really did like seeing these two characters on screen. But I also enjoyed Knuckles. Knuckles was my favorite character in this entire movie. They nailed his character exactly. When I see this Knuckles on the screen, I think of the Knuckles from the game. He's super serious, he's aggressive, and he's also a bit of a simpleton too. His doofus personality just seemed to mirror his game-like counterpart. It just felt like I was watching the video game version of Knuckles come to life on screen. And Idris Elba's voice, I was really surprised at how it sounded coming out of Knuckles' mouth. I really enjoyed it. It gave him this kind of alien, foreign appeal to him, which Knuckles is pretty foreign to Sonic in terms of location, because Knuckles is from this place called Angel Island, and Sonic is from Green Hills. So it was just a delight to watch Knuckles. He was a lot of fun. And the movie did a really good job making me care for him. Now you're probably wondering about Dr. Eggman. In the first movie, he was the one character where I said he had the funniest line in the entire movie. In this movie, he is totally funnier. The humor in this movie is turned up to 11. It is extremely funny. It is just, you watch Jim Carrey as Dr. Eggman, and he is just going all out with this over-the-top, I'm smarter than you personality of a character. Over-the-top humor clash with Knuckles' super serious character. It was just it was really funny, and he did get quite a bit of laughs out of the entire movie. And I will go ahead and say that Dr. Eggman is in probably some of the funniest scenes throughout the entire movie, along with Knuckles. Some of the other humor scenes are shared by like the human characters like Tom and Maddie. They're not in the movie that much, and they're fine. They're just Tom and Maddie with their sister Rachel. Is that her name? They're assuming this kind of parental role over Sonic. The reason I bring them up is because the only other funny scene in this movie that made me actually laugh was the wedding scene with Maddie's sister, where she's getting married, and then Sonic reappears out of nowhere, and it's revealed that almost everybody at the wedding is a federal agent, including the priest who has a gun in his Bible. I was just thinking to myself, wait, if he has a gun in his Bible, what in the world was he reading? What, like, if he had to be reading, like, some kind of scripture verses for, like, what if he had a gun in his Bible, what was he reading? Was somebody feeding lines to him? The action in this movie is also really good. Really chaotic, really fun, and very appealing to Sonic fans. There's a lot of lore and fan service on display here in this movie. And I do want to touch back on that later in this review, because I do have another note I want to add to this fan service aspect of this movie. So yeah, we got good characters, good action, good humor, physical and verbal. Sonic mostly works with like physical slapstick comedy, because in the games, when they try to tell a joke verbally, it doesn't work, but when it's physical comedy, it always lands. Okay, now that I've gotten the good stuff out of the way, I need to go over the negatives of this movie. And unfortunately, these are some actually pretty big negatives. The first one is the plot of this movie. The biggest issue I have with it lies in its pacing. Especially in the beginning, every scene feels like they're just trying to rush through almost every scene just to get to a specific point in the movie. In the beginning, when Sonic first meets Knuckles, it feels like they just fight for a little bit, but then when they try to get to Tails and they try to get the adventure started, it just feels like they just throw out expository dialogue just so they can get to the next scene. And this happens a lot throughout the entire movie, and at its expense that they sacrifice any time that they could have spent focusing on character growth. There was a scene where Sonic and Tails are in the garage with Tom's officer buddy, and they're looking at a map, and there's a hologram of Longclaw, the owl from the first movie, and it was like, oh, is Sonic going to get some character arc where he misses his mom and he tries to find his real family? And it looks like the movie was going for that, but it really falls flat. There's no real actual character growth for Sonic or Tails. It's mostly just Knuckles who seems to actually change as a character, which is really disappointing because there are plenty of scenes in this movie where they could have taken the time to actually give Sonic an actual character arc and make this movie have some heart to it. If there was one thing I could add to this movie that would make it so much better, it would be just a dose of heart. It really felt like the movie wanted to go there, but it didn't try that hard. There's also a lot of scenes in here that feel like a lot of fluff. Like, for example, there's this scene where Sonic and Tails go to a tavern, I think, in Siberia, while they're looking for the Master Emerald and they need a place to stay. And they get into a fight, and they're about to be fried in a fireplace, and they decide, hey, wait a minute, we want a pivonka. Which, again, that's part of the rushed plotting. Like, they don't explain how Tails is able to speak Russian, how he figures out how Pavonka is. They kind of hint that it's with his translator. But, it's very rushed. And anyway, let me continue. So, they have this dance scene, and I want to say, first of all, the Russian guy that they fight with, he's an actual Russian dancer in real life. Just throwing that out there. But this whole scene just feels kind of like cringe. It just feels like a whole bunch of fluff. They try to use it to give Tails some character. Like, there's that whole Tails is a coward and he's trying to become more brave. That's a detail developed in the game Sonic Adventure. But here, it just feels kind of rushed. And let me just say this. The song they chose, Uptown Funk, is the stupidest choice for a dance-off song ever. If you want to go into a dance-off with somebody and you want to pick a song, do not choose Uptown Funk. Believe me, I tried it and I lost. I had it with there was a dance-off at my church once, and it was to do a tiebreaker for a contest. And for some reason, I thought Uptown Funk was the best song to go with for the dance-off. It was not. I lost, and I got a really terrible prize. Look, that's a story for another day. So anyway, yeah, this whole scene just feels like a bunch of filler, and it's just trying to please the kids. Like they're trying to appeal to the kids. You could have just put like, I don't know, you could have put something like a '90s song or something that would actually fit the Pivonka scene. It something that fits Sonic's style, not something like modern day. The whole scene just does not fit, and there's other moments like this throughout the movie. So yeah, rushed plot, failure to take some time to develop the characters, but the plot overall is just fine. The characters are still very likable. So what was my other problem though? Well, as I mentioned earlier, I did want to talk about the fan service in this movie, because I really think they did a little bit too much. I know, that sounds really silly to say, but hear me out. There's a lot of fan service in this movie that does work. The best one is when it's subtle and you kind of miss it and you have to see it on a rewatch. That's the best kind of fan service I like, because it makes me go back and it makes me just look around like, ooh, what's this referencing to? What's this referencing to? But then there are those references that, as a Sonic fan, I'm able to recognize. For example, the snowboard chase down the mountain. That is a reference to a level in one of the Sonic games, Sonic 3, which features Knuckles. The whole temple scene, that is a reference to a Sonic game. I didn't take the time to look it up. I should have. I'm sorry. But there's a lot of cues and character moments that are also references to Sonic games, like, as I mentioned, Tails' cowardice, Knuckles being fooled by Eggman. That's also a character moment that is featured in the Sonic games. Oh, the Death Egg Robot also. That is a reference to the final boss in Sonic 2. And Gun. Those are also characters featured in the Sonic Adventure games. And Shadow the Hedgehog, and briefly mentioned in Sonic 06, if you want to stretch it a little. But I think where the movie kind of overstuffed itself with fan service was with the whole supersonic scene. Now, let me just say this. I do think going supersonic was necessary for Sonic to beat the Death Egg Robot at the end of the movie. My one problem with it is they never, ever make reference to the Chaos Emeralds. They're just there on the ground, and they leaked from the Master Emerald, which, that's kind of a cool detail the more I think about it. It kind of makes the movie separate from the games. Gives it a little more variety, I should say. After Sonic uses the Chaos Emeralds to go supersonic, he just throws them back in the air, which, yeah, that's usually normal for the Sonic games. The Chaos Emeralds, after they're used, they just fly off and disappear. But they don't acknowledge the existence of the Chaos Emeralds. And it makes me think that while it's good to see supersonic, it feels a little bit unnecessary. They just kind of had to have supersonic in there because fan service. Look, you didn't have to say it. They didn't have to say it by name. They just had to acknowledge their existence. But if you're not going to do that, well then, why are they in the movie? What are they doing? And all they talk about is just the Master Emerald. The Master Emerald. It's the big green emerald that Knuckles usually guards in the game. That's what they care about. You could have at least said, oh hey, what are these 7 glowing colored emerald thingies that popped out of the Master Emerald? You could have at least acknowledged the Chaos Emerald's existence. That's it. You didn't have to say them by name. You didn't have to try to figure out what they were, or do some scientific dissection. The movie makers could have just said, they just mentioned the Chaos Emeralds, and then you could save him for the next movie, which I do want to briefly touch on later. If you catch what I'm trying to get here, I hope you all understand. I know I ramble a bit, and I get a little excited, but yeah, those are the only issues that really bother with me. But to leave this whole spoiler review on a high note, I do want to say I did love the reveal of Shadow the Hedgehog in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. That is a very good cliffhanger to have in the movie, and it's a great way to get people pumped up for the next one. Because it's kind of similar for what they did for Sonic 1, because in that movie they teased Tails, and that teased the Sonic 2. This one, Shadow the Hedgehog, there's a lot of history behind this character. I can't wait to see how they acknowledge and hopefully they get it right. There's a lot of love for Sonic, but there's a lot of controversy in how they've portrayed him as a character. But the one thing I want to touch on for movie Shadow is his voice. And let me just be honest here. No, I don't think Keanu Reeves is a good idea for a voice actor. Shadow's voice has this sort of mysterious, but he's also kind of just like reserved. He's held back, but he doesn't go full on edge. He's a little bit edge, but not quite there. And Keanu Reeves' voice, I don't think has that. They've got to find someone who really captures a sort of toughness, but also sensitive side to Shadow the Hedgehog. So other than that, I think I really like Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Grading it, however, it's going to be a little difficult. Because the more I think about it, I would rather watch Sonic the Hedgehog 2 than I'd watch the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Because this movie is a lot more colorful, there's a lot more recognizable characters, and I found myself having a lot more fun with this movie. Which means I obviously like it. Now, the last movie I gave it a 9. But I also had 2 problems with that. That being the Quicksilver mimicking scenes and flat humor. So how am I going to have to grade this if I like the Sonic movie 2 more, but I have more problems with it than I do with the first movie? Well, I did watch the first movie in order to prepare for this one. And I will say that my first grade for a 9 was a bit of a stretch. I was a little excited for it, and I thought maybe this movie would be a 10 out of 10, but it wasn't. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my grade for the first movie from a 9 to an 8. And so for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think that's the fairest way to do it. I think it's better than the first movie, but it still has more visible problems that do bug me. And maybe on second viewing, I might like it a little more. I'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's my review for Sonic 2. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. And if you want to help support the channel, the best way to do it is to hit the red subscribe button. Actually, they colored it white, so hit the white subscribe button. Comment down below what you loved about the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. And catch y'all later in the next video, everybody. Stay tuned, everyone.